I've had my simulator in my home for the last 4 years, and a lot has changed since version 1. While overall the footprint remains the same, a lot of my components have changed, like the custom computer I made, to the 4K projector, and even the turf. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about all the current components in my setup and answering a lot of those questions that people have asked over the years, like how far do you hit from, how big is your screen, and where did you get that awesome clock? We also recently hit 10,000 subscribers, and as a big thank you to the viewers, we want to do another YouTube live giveaway. So if you want to be part of that, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below so we can add your name to the wheel. We want to go big on this giveaway, so we're going to be doing a $1,000 prize. So in your comment, list what you'd like to see that prize be. Maybe you're just getting started with your simulator and you want a component to build it, or you already have an established simulator and you want to do an upgrade like you'll see in my video, or maybe just buy some new golf clubs. Whatever it is, comment down below and we'll make sure to take that into consideration. As always, links to everything in my setup will be listed in the descriptions down below. And if you're just getting started in your sim build journey, make sure to reach out to us directly at pixelgolfco.com, where we offer 100% free consultations to help you design a sim that will fit your space and your budget. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let's get started with the video. So I've wanted a simulator in my home for as long as I can remember, but back when I first was building it, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there on how to do it, and most of the sim kits I saw back then were either way overpriced or just not the look I was going for. This space I have my simulator in is a shared family space, and having a wife and kids, I wanted to make it not just for me, but something they could enjoy as well. Most of the sims that were around back then either looked like a dark dungeon or a big black box in the middle of the room, and I didn't want that. I wanted something that looked like an extension of our home that was nice and open, that can serve multi-uses like watching movies, playing games, or even doing at-home workouts. So rather than going out and buying one of those box kits that would have cost substantially more, I pieced together all the different components to make what I envisioned in my head. And now a room that we never really use is one that we use every single day. Now my wife, who never really cared about golf before, is probably one of the biggest golfers I know. And my daughter, who I tried to get golfing for so many years before having a simulator, is now on the high school golf team. My first build budget was around $5,000, as we didn't know if we were actually going to end up keeping it. COVID was going on back then. I honestly thought they were going to shut the golf courses down, so I thought now's the time to do it. But obviously we ended up loving it, so I invested more money into some of these components I'm going to cover. So let's cover what components I have in my setup now, starting with one that gets often overlooked, and that is the screen. All right, I started my build with a Carl's Place DIY enclosure, and it was their older original design, which back then had a full border around the screen. I now have their new C-Series design with the premium screen. The standout feature of the new C-Series design over the previous version I had is that they use a cable along the bottom of the screen that basically removes that lower border, having a much cleaner integrated look where that screen just goes straight down to the turf. As for the top of the screen, and this was a pretty smart design feature, is they actually move the whole screen about a foot below the top of the enclosure. And the reason that's important is for projector placement. When your projector is shooting an image onto your screen, if you have an enclosure where the screen sits high up, like most enclosures do, you risk the projected image clipping the top of the enclosure, which results in you having to lower your projector down and angle it up slightly to be able to clear the top of that enclosure, which is introducing keystone corrections, which will affect your image quality. The reason I went with an enclosure over a built-in is because I didn't want to drill a bunch of holes in my wall, and also back then I didn't know if I was going to keep it, but even though I am keeping it now and I know it's not going anywhere, I still prefer the enclosure. It just gives me the flexibility to be able to easily disassemble it and remove it. I can take this whole thing out in about 30 minutes. The cool thing about Carl's Place is they give you the ability to customize your enclosure or your screen to the size that you need it for your build. It's really easy to do with their DIY tool, where you enter your room dimensions and you can pretty much build it exactly how you want it to fit your space. As you can see, I was able to design mine to fit perfectly into this nook how I wanted, leaving enough room on the sides for storage and wall protection. They also have options to do just a screen or even a built-in option if you don't want to go the enclosure route. I'll link that free tool down below so you can check it out, and I also have a video covering it in more detail. They also have quick and convenient safety features if you need them, like safety foam that you can add around the perimeter of your screen, protecting the pipes. And since they have that cable design, they basically took that lower bar of the enclosure and they moved it about 10 to 12 inches back away from the screen, so you don't have to worry about worm burners coming into contact with that lower pipe. You also have side nuts that quickly Velcro to the sides if you need extra protection for less experienced players, and easy to attach baffles for the top of the enclosure for higher wedge shots. As for the right side, since there's a wall there, the safety nets won't really do much on that side. But again, I'm only hitting from 8 feet back, so it doesn't really give shanks a chance to travel outside of the enclosure. But as an extra safety measurement, I store a foldable gym mat on that side. I can easily slide out when I have less experienced players, or for my younger, more dangerous nephews, I simply just let them use the Nintendo Switch to play golf. I also wanted to add backlighting around the perimeter of the screen like you see behind me, as it makes the image pop more, and this is pretty much something I do to every TV in my house. And added this foam pipe insulation around the enclosure that adds a little extra protection and gives a perfect mounting point for the LED strips. You can use any kind of LED strips you want. I went with the Govee ones as I really like the app control, allowing me to set timers or change to custom themes. I'll link the ones I use in the description down below. Also, a very important tip for any golf simulator is to always use clean balls and clean clubs. The last thing you want to do is hit a dirty ball into a white screen or have dirt or mud onto your clubs, especially if you hit balls that have Sharpie on them. That is obviously going to transfer on the screen. And also, one other tip is to use a high quality soft cover ball. One I recommend is the Kirkland balls from Costco. They're a 3-piece design with a nice soft cover and they don't really break the bank. I can't recommend Carl's Place enough for their attention to detail and their quality. I will say if you get a screen or an enclosure from Carl's Place, it's worth a little extra to get the premium screen. I'll see a lot of people take budget away from their screen material and put it in something like the projector, and you don't want to do that. The two kind of work hand in hand, so if you have a good projector but you're casting it on a very rough textured surface, also, the cheaper screens are louder on impact. This thing is super quiet when a ball makes contact with it. Even if you're going with a bright 4K projector, projecting pixels onto cottage cheese just isn't going to look good. Speaking of projector, let's jump to that next. I started my build with the Optima GT 1090 HDR projector, which is a pretty good 1080p projector, but I now have what is arguably the king of golf sim projectors, and that is the BenQ LK936ST. It's a 4K projector with 5100 lumens of brightness, and the image is absolutely insane. I will say, however, that the price on this one is pretty high, and for most people who want to go 4K, I highly recommend taking a look at BenQ's brand new AK700ST, which is a 4K projector with 4000 lumens of brightness and half the cost of this one. It also has a lot of features that the LK doesn't have, like auto screen fit, quick focus, and motorized zoom. You can check out the full review of that projector on the channel. But if you have to have the best, this is the one. I will say though, for most people, to stay within your budget, and you can always upgrade down the road like I did. Also, something that gets often overlooked and done incorrectly with projectors is the setup. Having proper placement of your projector is so crucial, as you want to make sure you have it in the right spot so you're not affecting image quality by doing any kind of digital corrections. So I do have a video going over how I set up this LK in the absolute optimal position, but it also works with other projectors, so check that video out as well. My projector is mounted just over 10 feet back from the front of my screen and 8 feet 2 inches from the floor. I also took the extra time of installing an outlet and going in my attic to run HDMI across and down through the wall to the back of my PC so it looks nice and clean. Make sure you get a high quality HDMI cable if you're going to be doing a long run, and try to keep that run under 40 feet to avoid any signal loss from happening. The cable I use is 30 feet. It's never been an issue. It supports 4K, but you can also use it if you're only doing 1080p, as you kind of want to future-proof it a little bit if you can. And it's only like $25 on Amazon, depending on the length you need. I'll link that one in the description down below as well. I also have a 4K Apple TV that lives on top of my BenQ for watching TV, movies, or my wife's at-home workouts. And that plugs into the other available HDMI port on the projector, and all I have to do is switch the source on the BenQ remote. It basically turns any projector into a smart projector, and I highly recommend doing it. I started with an Amazon 4K Fire Stick, but the Apple TV 4K just looks a lot better. It's a lot easier to use, even if you're not an Apple user. As for the settings I use, BenQ makes this extremely easy. Just leave it in golf mode, as that looks the best for golf sim software and even when you switch over to TV. And my top tip that makes a huge difference is turn sharpness all the way up on the projector. You wouldn't normally do this on a regular TV, but when you're projecting an image as big as a golf simulator, adding extra sharpness makes a huge difference. If you're going to go 4K, you want to make sure you have a PC that is spec'd to be able to handle those intense graphics. So let's jump over to my computer next. In version 1 of my build, I was running 1080p, so my gaming laptop did just fine. But as soon as I upgraded to 4K, I noticed that my laptop was struggling on some of the higher demand, higher graphics courses, and my fans were running constantly. Now, it got the job done, but again, I was using my simulator a lot, so I decided to invest money into a gaming PC. Just like the enclosure, I didn't see any pre-builds that I liked, or they were way overpriced, so I put in a ton of time and research to learn what I needed, which components I needed for the kind of software that I was running, especially in 4K at the highest settings. So I built this gaming PC and recorded the entire process and put it in a how-to video on YouTube, so check that video out if you're interested. The whole process was extremely fun to do, and it really wasn't that hard, and what I ended up with was a PC that I loved the look of and was spec'd to be able to run any golf sim software in 4K at the highest settings. This PC eats up every single golf sim software I throw at it, like GS Pro, FSX Play, and even the brand new E6 Apex. I obviously got carried away with some of the upgrades, like the LCD CPU cooler, the Lian Li LCD fans, and definitely spent more getting white components over black. If you want a full breakdown of this build, be sure to check that video out. For the shelf this PC sits on, again, I wanted it to be clean, so I bought a few of these pipe shelf kits off Amazon and then pieced them together to fit my build and even added a side shelf. I'll link the kit I used in my setup in the descriptions down below, but really any pipe shelf kit will work. You just have to use your imagination and piece it together how you want. Just make sure that you space them out appropriately so you can go into 2 studs, as these computers are extremely heavy. And then for the shelf, go ahead and just put whatever kind of wood you want. I think I got these 2 at Lowe's. I also took the extra time to put an outlet behind my PC to keep everything nice and clean and give it that floating look. And this is also where my HDMI comes out the back and plugs into an HDMI switcher I have. The reason I use one of these HDMI switchers is because I have the Nintendo Switch plugged into it and also my PC, so being able to switch from the sim back to the Nintendo Switch is extremely easy to do. I've actually tried a lot of these HDMI switchers and most of them were pretty much junk. But this one I found works really great, and I'll be sure to link that down below if you're interested. We use the Nintendo Switch in here a lot, so I decided to leave it in here permanently. It's also a lot safer in the sim if somebody accidentally throws a controller at the screen. I even 3D printed a custom housing for it, as well as a cube to hold all the games, and even a giant NES cartridge with my channel's name on it to fill the space out, and used a spare piece of turf for the shelf. Speaking of which, let's jump to the turf now. For the turf, I started out with some basic putting turf from a local turf supplier here in Arizona, and it looked great at the beginning, but that didn't last long. After just a few months, the place where I stand started to have discolorization where my feet were, and it really started bugging me, so I went on another mission to find a turf that didn't do that, which landed me on the Money Putt turf by Grass Tex. Underneath the turf, I'm still using the same Eva gym foam mats that I put in my sim in the very beginning, and they're holding up extremely well. A lot of people ask me if I have my turf glued to the mat, and I don't. The amount of friction and gravity of the turf sitting on top of the mat makes it so it doesn't move at all. I also did it this way because should I ever need to roll up the turf and take the mats out of here, I can do it in less than 2 minutes. I have a full video on the channel showing the whole process of installing this turf, so check that out. Now, since this turf rolls so nice, I wanted to add some putting cups to it for practicing putting as well, and actually I already had some of these putting cups from Birdie Ball that work perfect with the 1-inch gym mat. They sell a cutting tool that's easy to use. Just make sure where you cut them that they aren't going to cast a shadow on your screen from the projector hitting the top of the flag pins. I'll link those down below as well. They also have options for custom-made flag pins, which basically you can send them a logo that they'll put on there, but it's basically just a cheap sticker. It doesn't look that good. So I cut them off and 3D printed some iconic crowns instead to match the theme of my sim. A lot of people ask me why I don't have a putting cup on the dead center line of my sim. And the reason is because when you're playing the golf sim software, you're gonna have putts of all different lengths, and you don't wanna have a set cup down your center line. Let's say you have a 20-foot putt. Now you're basically gonna be ricocheting balls into that cup that's 8 feet away. As for the hitting insert, this is a custom-made insert, and I went this route because it gave me the flexibility to make it any size I wanted, and to use the same Money Putt turf for the top, which makes a more seamless look. I have a video showing you how to make this exact same hitting insert. It's not that hard to do, and it's really affordable, so I'll link that video down below. But there's also some other pre-made ones if you don't want to go through the hassle that I'll link as well. So that sums up the turf. Let's jump over to the launch monitor. I started my build with the FlightScope Mevo Plus, and it was a great unit. I had a lot of fun with it, especially at the price that it was at. However, it did struggle a lot on a lot of misreads that was happening in my setup. Probably just the fact that it's a radar-based unit, which they do tend to struggle indoors. The other big downside with the FlightScope Mevo Plus is it requires 16 feet of length, so I had to make this custom lily pad that stuck out of the back of my putting turf, which definitely wasted some space, and the unit itself was kind of finicky overall to set up. So I eventually upgraded to a Bushnell Launch Pro that is basically a subscription-based Foresight GC3, and now I have an actual GC3 as I hate paying for subscriptions. The GC3 is a great unit that's extremely accurate and takes up no space at all. There's a lot of content on the GC3 out there, so I won't go into too many details as we have a lot of things to cover, but just know it's a great unit that I highly recommend. For the software, the GC3 comes with a few different kinds of softwares, one being FSX Play, which is an amazing software with good graphics and a lot of cool features. But as for now, my heart is really with GS Pro software, as it features just about all of the courses you would ever want to play with amazing 4K graphics and the ability to let you practice from pretty much anywhere. At this point in the video, you've probably noticed a True Golf Apogee hanging from my ceiling and are probably wondering what's going on with that. I've actually had the Apogee for a few months now, and it's an amazing unit. I've been testing it against the GC3 and even compared the numbers against the TrackMan IO, and it was insanely accurate. That was without using any club stickers at all. Some of the standout features of the Apogee are voice control, where you can basically tell it to aim left, aim right, along with a bunch of other commands. Hey Apogee, aim right. It has a really well thought out interface for updates and all kinds of calibration, a laser circle that shows where to place the ball and disappears when it's ready to hit, which is extremely helpful for kids and other people placing the shot outside of the hitting window. It also has pretty much instant shot feedback where you hit the ball and it takes off. And best of all, live video footage using its onboard high-speed cameras, so your friends can't say they flushed a shot when it was clearly out the toe. It works with their brand new E6 Apex software, which probably has some of the best graphics I've ever seen in sim software, but they are still actively developing it. But if they manage to get this software close to where GS Pro is now, with the ability to practice anywhere on the course and also offering those iconic courses on the software, it's gonna be really, really hard not to switch. It's just nice to have a launch monitor mounted to the ceiling that is up and out of the way, leaving a nice clean hitting area. As you can see, I'm pretty invested, as I also run a power outlet and cable run for this unit as I did with the projector. And just to be clear, if the Apogee had direct integration with GS Pro right now, I would have no problem switching from the GC3 to this one full time. Definitely stay tuned to the channel for the full review of the Apogee. I obviously want to make sure that E6 Apex is completely done, so I can definitely give it a fair, unbiased review. So now that we've covered all the components that are pretty much necessary in having an indoor golf simulator, let's talk about some of the other things that people ask for, like how I get sound in here for movies. For the sound, when I'm using the sim, I just use the built-in speaker in the projector, as most of the sounds in sim software are birds and wind, which sound great coming up above anyway. When I'm watching movies, I have a JBL soundbar that connects via Bluetooth to my Apple TV that I can quickly plug in with an extension cable that lives behind my screen. I highly recommend this soundbar, as it has wireless rear surrounds that easily detach so I can place them behind the viewing area, and it has a wireless sub that lives in the back of my room that is surprisingly powerful. I'm honestly surprised with just how good this thing sounds, and that's coming from somebody who spent way too much time and money on their main setup. I'll put a link for that soundbar in the descriptions down below if you're interested. All right, the moment I'm sure quite a few of you have been waiting for based on the comments over the years, and that's the clock. As you can probably tell, and as quite a few of you have noticed, I'm a pretty big watch guy. Obviously, watching golf over the years, this clock has been in the most iconic tournaments, and I've always wanted one. That clock isn't something you can just go out and buy, and any that I have seen in the wild cost substantially more than a golf simulator. So I gave up looking a few years back and decided to just make my own. This clock is made by constructing a wood frame, finding whatever clock you like online, and making a cutout and back frame to secure it in place. You can pick whatever paint you want, and you can use a decal machine to put whatever branding you want on it. I actually made a freestanding one as well with my branding to put up at our booth when we sponsored a charity event last year in Arizona to help keep groups on pace. Now I'm beyond amazed with how many people I've helped build simulators over the years, many of which have designed theirs to look pretty much exactly like mine. And while I appreciate the comments, just know this clock is not for sale, as time is our most valuable asset, and just like this clock, you can't buy time. I will, however, be giving away one of these Pebble Beach clocks that I made in my 3D printer. So again, make sure to subscribe and comment down below, and we will pin the details for that live drawing in the comments. Rolex actually sponsored me last year to play in the Charles Schwab Pro-Am event, which was probably one of the coolest events I have ever been a part of, and I am beyond grateful to them for that experience, as the founder Hans Wilsdorf and his story have always been an inspiration to me. So I definitely don't want to burn any bridges with that great company, I'm sure you can understand. Okay, that pretty much sums up my entire build. I'm sure I've probably missed a few things, so if there's something else you need details on, feel free to comment down below, or reach out to us directly at pixelgolfco.com, where we offer free consultations to help you build the sim to fit your space and your budget. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. As stated, when I started building a sim, there wasn't a lot of videos like this to really put things into perspective. So I'm glad to see that so many of you are benefiting from the videos I put out there, and I look forward to releasing more down the road. Links to everything you've seen throughout this video and in my setup will be listed in the descriptions down below. Thank you guys again, and don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll see you on the next one.